Okay, so starting off, I have diced up 2 onions, about this size. I'm using this for my next meal. Took about 2 tablespoons of butter. Took about, maybe 2 tablespoons of garlic. Sprinkled some some turmeric on top of this. And now I'm going to put some ginger in here, just around the garlic area. Shake real good in there. This shake's really low here because it's not all the way open. So I'm not putting a whole lot, just a little bit in there. And I'm going to, I'm boiling the spinach right now. 1 pound of spinach. I backed it off the burner so it's starting to boil over. Now right here in the beginning, I'm not using chilies, so I'm just going to put a little bit of chili powder in here. Gosh, these things are so slow to shake. And then we're starting to smell the chili powder there. So you want to really caramelize these onions. Until they are just very well integrated. But be careful not to burn the butter. That's the thing. Now the butter's melted, we can mix this in here real good. You can smell the garlic cooking there. Yeah. It smells really good. Turn this up so you can see a little bit better. There we go. And never hurts to add just a little bit of salt. Not too much, this isn't your final flavoring, just a little bit of salt to get your onions cooking well. And pluck any, hairs that might have fallen in there while you were preparing. You don't want you eating your own hair. There we go. Just a little bit of salt over that. The importance of cooking them one thing at a time is so the flavoring is correct. You don't want to just throw everything together and every spice all at the same time. It just doesn't integrate very well that way. Anyways, I'm going to continue cooking this and caramelizing these onions until they are ready. As they dry out, I will add a little bit of water to the skillet. I used to add butter to keep it moisturized, but that makes it really unhealthy and fattening. Albeit tasting really good, but adding water is better for your health. So I'll be back in a minute. Let me finish this section up and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so back to the onions here. We have caramelized them for about another 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less. So you see how they're just looking like they're very well brown, almost on the verge of burning. That's about where you want to caramelize them to. I did add about this much water throughout the process, and I added just a tiny bit of vegetable oil. And that's the sound of the oven being ready for my eggplant to stick in at 550 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, we'll do that here in a minute. Right now we're going to add the tomatoes. So I've sliced up 3 tomatoes, about Roma size. So let's see here, we got about this size. Now 3 larger Roma tomatoes. You could do almost any tomatoes, but these tend to be a little bit easier to cook, in my opinion. Notice how I'm using a cookie sheet as my cutting board. Yeah, when I moved, somehow my cutting boards got lost, so this knife sucks. So it gets to be chopped on top of a cookie sheet. So we're gonna stir this up real good so it doesn't burn too bad. And now we're gonna drop the tomatoes in there. And we're gonna cook these. Whether it's hard to do one-handed. Let me just And we're just going to stir this all in there real good. Just, chop your tomatoes up in there and just stir them up real good. Very well integrating into the onions. And you want to cook these until the skins of the tomatoes are very soft. Doesn't take very long, about 5 minutes or so. Then lower your heat a little bit at this point, just so you're not burning anything. At this point I'm going to add a bit of cumin to my mixture. Let's see, is this a screw? Yep, that's a screw. Oh, I just got a little cumin in there. Boy, cumin is sure strong. You don't want to put too much of that. Now we're going to put some black pepper. Forgot to add that earlier, so we're just going to make up for it now. Usually you want to do black pepper with the onions, but that's okay. And just a dash of coriander. Just, like so. There you go. And you want to stir that up real good with the spices. Oh, look at that. That is just looking great there. Big, mushy mess. And so far, we've only used about a tablespoon of butter. Oh, maybe 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to add some more later on, but the goal is not to use too much in the early phases as you make your dish way too fattening. Super good, but super fattening. That's how they like to cook it at the restaurants. Super fattening. So I'm trying to experiment with healthier ways to make this dish. So this is ready. I'm going to turn the heat off and I'm going to drain my spinach. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so I drained all that spinach and that's what's left. Not much. So I'm going to take my flipper here and I'm just going to kind of mash the spinach up a little bit in here. Because we're doing this without blending, so we don't want too big a chunks of spinach coming out. So we're going to actually put a little bit more butter in this spinach here. So about yay much, a tablespoon. Drop it directly into spinach, try to get the onion skin off it. Got on there, and then we're going to put a bit of chili powder in the spinach here. And we're going to put a clove in the spinach here. Just not yay much, not too terribly much. And let's see, coriander. I want to go a little bit heavier on the coriander this time, not too heavy. Just getting on there real good. Now you want to stir it up. Then put this on top of this burner back here. And let those seasonings cook into the spinach for a few minutes. The heat is still off on this. I'm actually going to transfer this mixture into the spinach. So just let this boil off a little bit till it's more dry. It does kind of help incorporate the flavors directly into the spinach like you want. And then if there's too much water, moisture afterwards, you can drain a little bit of this out of there as well. And you're not aiming for absolute perfection in taste right now. You just want to integrate the spices into it without going too heavy. And the end is going to be and experimentation with one spice at a time until it tastes right. And that's just the best way I could think to put it. So I'm going to pause this video and I'll continue after I've integrated this into there. Almost forgot, you definitely want to add a little bit of salt at this point. There you go. Just don't forget about your salt. Just don't ever do your salt. Okay, so now we've integrated that in there. I'm going to move that up to this burner so it's easier to get to. And now it's a matter of just cooking this in there. Stir it up real good. We're going to let this kind of cook like this for about 5, 6, 7 minutes or so. Just simmer it on high heat. Cooking on high heat, you got to be really good at that to do these dishes properly. So, stir it up a little bit here. There. And I'll come back later. Well, it's been a couple minutes. I added about a teaspoon of butter in there and I turned the heat down to about 7. Just so it doesn't burn. Yeah, we're just lots of stirring at this point, lots of just letting it cook in there, letting it blend in there, just letting the flavors kind of seep their way in there. At this point, you can add some MSG to the mixture. MSG is the secret ingredient on most of my dishes. So, that's a pretty adequate amount of MSG there. You could put a little bit more black pepper in here at this point too. And we can add a dash more of salt. There we are. And then just give it a good stir. Let it cook in there real good. Got a warning from my phone that it's too hot for multi-window usage. Must be doing something right. Overheating my phone. There we are. Look at that. That is looking really good there. Yeah, we are doing really well at this point in time. About 5, 6 minutes have gone by since I first added the, or mixed the spinach in with the onions and tomatoes. So we're going to add, let's see here, a tad bit of coriander, I suppose. Not much. And then for our next important ingredient that I almost forgot about, fenugreek seed. Let me find that real quick. Okay, I found it. This is a literal make it or break it seasoning that I've forgotten to add before and couldn't figure out why the flavors didn't taste right. I just put a little bit in my hand here. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle a bit in there, not too much, and then just throw the rest out. Definitely don't want to forget your fenugreek. That is very important to this dish. And you always add it right towards the end, and that's why it gets forgotten about. But I tell you, the smell, the aroma of this has changed exponentially since adding that fenugreek. This is a very, very, very bitter seasoning. Very sour. And believe me, a tiniest amount goes a really, really long ways in making this taste right. So any people who like the stuff authentic on, you know, YouTube, whatnot, please don't criticize my video. I'm literally just showing my own personal recipe and how I actually manage to cook this stuff well myself and make it taste to the way I like to taste it. So I think that's cooked long enough here. So you're going to start adding your heavy whipping cream to it. Always use heavy whipping cream. Don't substitute for half and half for milk. Cream is what you need. And I tend to add a pretty liberal amount to start with. Just, you know, kind of go in there real good there. There we are. No precise measurements. I adjust it as I go to flavor. And then you just stir it in there real good. Yeah, there we are. I'm probably going to add a little bit more later on. This dish is very good, creamy. You see kind of the texture here. This isn't the final product. You can add more or less cream depending on your flavor preference. I like more cream, especially since I skimped out on the butter. I gotta have something to give it flavor, some kind of fat. So I'll be back when I do the final taste testing. As I'm right at the end now, I put a touch ginger twice in there because it wasn't quite tasting right. Put more salt in it. And I put a tad bit of coriander in there. And then I added some chili powder right towards the end just to give it a little bit more zing. Right now we got a very savory taste. It's a really good blend of spices right now. It's very delicious. I'd say it's pretty much a finished product. I'm trying to think of anything else I can add to it to make it taste a little bit more vibrant. I can't really think of much. Maybe a tad bit of clove, just a touch. There we are. Let's see how that does. You don't want to overdo it when you're adding your final spices. The flavor is really good. I just felt a little bit flat. So I put a bit of clove in there. See if that's the one it's missing. Oh, that woke it up a lot. Oh yeah. That woke it up a lot. And we'll put just a little bit more cream in there. Pretty well creamed out. We put quite a bit of cream in this dish. You're going to put usually like at least a cup of cream in the whole thing. It really is a very good dish when it's creamy. Gives it that really good flavor. It adds volume to it as well. Adds a lot of sustenance and fattening flavor to it. It's really good like that. Let's see here. We're just going to give it a little taste here. Oh, that's perfect. That's how you do it. Right at the end, you just have to experiment with your spice a little bit at a time. If you're ever wondering, just take a spoonful out and just add a little bit of one spice to that spoonful, the tiniest amount, and see how that changes the flavor. And then you end up with a perfect spinach curry. Looks really good. Put the light on it. That's how it should look in the end. It's a really nice looking dish. Hope I helped. Hope you can learn how to cook this dish yourself. And it doesn't matter what skin color you are, what country you're from, ethnicity you're from. Anyone can cook good food. You don't have to be limited to boring, Americanized, westernized food. You can cook delicious Indian food better than the quality of the restaurants. This is better than almost any restaurant quality I've ever had in my life. So this is really good stuff here. Follow my recipe and subscribe to my channel. Maybe I'll put some more recipes up.